Although unusual, storms can form ahead of the official start of the hurricane season. So that's what we want to talk about in today's Coffee Talk is tropical storms in the month of May. They've happened. These are them going back to 1950.
Yeah, I mean, you might think June 1st, I don't have to wait until June 1st. Not so fast because it's happened before June 1st.
Yeah, and you can see where they generally form. You tend to not look way out in the Atlantic. A little closer to home.
A little closer to home. You go back in time, back to the 1800s. There's been 32 May storms, and there was a stretch. There's none in the last 3 years, but there was a stretch for a 15-year stretch from 2007 to 2021. But we had 11 named storms in the month of May. So in 2021, NHC asked the question, should we actually start the season a little early? And they found out no. I mean, no. Most of the hurricane season actually falls within the hurricane, or most of the hurricanes and storms fall within the hurricane season. So, that's not necessarily a concern about moving the start to the season. But since it happens, we should talk about why.
Well, let's have a look at what's out there. And I think we can sort of back into that question about why we typically don't see development in May. So when you look at the current conditions out there over the Atlantic right now, there's some scattered high clouds and there's some thunderstorms here and there. But largely that is, if you showed that picture in August, you'd be like, there is nothing out there. So this is kind of why May is the way it is, with very limited opportunities for development, because there's just not a whole lot of collection of thunderstorm activity out there to begin with. And one of the reasons why is because oftentimes you have gentle high pressure over the region, which is what we have right now, bringing in some stable air from the north into the deep tropics.
Now, there's a little zone there just off the southeast coast, a little flare up there, and folks might say, okay, what is that doing? And does that have a chance to maybe try to organize?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid question because we typically look for old fronts. We look for maybe a cluster of thunderstorms to come off into the waters in, any time of year. But that can be an instigator for a tropical system. So why won't this develop?
Right. And also one more thing to add to that. You're so right about that, Jen. This is exactly where in past Mays, we've seen some development. So if you saw those thunderstorms off the East Coast, you'd be like, wait a minute, I better take a look at that. Well, we did. We got that covered for you. Very strong winds aloft here, strong wind shear. Going to completely eliminate any chance for tropical development here. This is May, and this is exactly why it doesn't happen very often in May.
Yeah, we have seen it in May, though. There was Arthur that came up through this area. Do you remember that? I think it was 2020, or my dates might be confused. But we can show you some video going back to that where, the eastern North Carolina, South Carolina, this area can get some tropical weather, we know, in the month of May. There we go. There's that video.
There's Arthur.
Yeah.
Hey.
Tropical storms.
Yeah.
We've had one hurricane back in 1970, but it's normally tropical storms.
Yeah, but the good news is May is doing its thing right now, as it typically does, and shutting down any chances there, so you don't have to worry about it right now. But let's go to the Pacific, because hurricane season on the Pacific side starts in 2 days.
Yeah, it's a little earlier
15th.
start, May 15th, right. And we have a little bit more activity, and kind of the overarching sort of setup here, a little different than what we're finding in the Atlantic.
It is, and it is one of those reasons why May we should start looking at the Pacific for development.
There seems like there's some candidates out there. You got clusters of showers and storms, a little bit of lightning. What's the upper level winds looking like?
Well, this is the thing, and this is what we sort of typically see in May, and one of the reasons why May can be much more favorable for development in the Pacific than on the Atlantic side, because look at where the jet stream winds are in relation to where those thunderstorm groups are. They're way off to the north here in the East Pac, and so with a ridge of high pressure aloft nearby, that is a sometimes favorable place for development, especially on the equatorward edges of that. So while we don't have anything right now, this is a place where it can happen, and we'll just be watching it over the next few days.
The Eastern Pacific season starts on May 15th, so it does start early because it typically develops a little bit earlier. You can get prepared for hurricane season by downloading the TWC streaming app. Tropical coverage you can count on includes up-to-date alerts as conditions change, along with information about evacuations and shelters. Go to streamtwc.com to get it for your smart TV or favorite device.